you've seen how after George Bush W, there's been a consistently upward trajectory of Indo-US relations. Is this a massive speed breaker to that now?
I think so. I think so. But we are not the only ones. You look at what's happened to the transatlantic alliance. It was the holy cow. It was the untouchable. It was the bedrock of the Western-led order, global order. Now, the first blow that was inflicted by Trump was not on India or China or Russia. It was on his own allies, the Munich Security Conference. And he started saying this also before January. And he had said this in his first term, but this time he went after them.
Yeah.
Basically, he said, you've got it all wrong, you're free riders. And he dismissed their Russia threat.
And J.D. Vance's speech.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, that was the sledgehammer to Europe. And I have been visiting Europe and talking to a lot of European scholars, before January. They were all extremely worried about what would be the consequence of a Trumpian foreign policy on the European alliance.
Okay.
They were even talking about the existence of the NATO alliance, the transatlantic alliance. They were even talking about that the time has come to maybe de-link ourselves from the United States, and instead of having a US-led NATO, to have a European-led NATO. They even talked about issues about a coalition of the willing, that since Europe is large and diverse, a few of them should get together and handle their own security. So the French, the Germans, the Italians, they started asserting themselves.
Recalibrating now.
Recalibrating. So all of this was happening. So when we look at ourselves, it's better to look at what we are going through in a larger context to understand why it is happening. The question is, are we the only ones? Or is it part and parcel of a bigger disruption globally that we are going through? And I think we are going through a disruption.
So, but we can't, you see what happens when these kind of disruptions is you're looking for allies. Okay, NATO is suffering, EU is suffering, the others are also in the same boat as us. But we can't ally with them that, अच्छा ये हमको तंग करता है तो हम लोग सब एक साथ हो जाते हैं. Can't happen like that, right?
Well, some of it has actually happened.
Because of the FTA that you're talking about.
Yeah, and if you notice, our outreach to Europe suddenly got stepped up.
Yeah, it was very awkward to see that happening, but it's happening, yes.
No, you had this famous visit of Ursula von der Leyen with the entire commissioners of the European Union. Never in the history of Europe have all the commissioners traveled to any country. So Europe was suddenly feeling orphaned. So they started looking at India with a new, fresh perspective, which they never had done before. Earlier it was, human rights, this, that and the other.
Environment.
Prescriptive. But now you suddenly found that umbrella under which you had lived for decades wasn't quite actually, was leaking. So yes, I'm not saying we can draw satisfaction from the fact that others are getting hit. That's not the point. But the point is, to make a policy response, you have to understand who you're dealing with and what is the overall situation. Because if you are making a policy response on the analysis that you're the only one getting hit and everyone else is fine, then there'll be a certain kind of policy response. But if you have figured that you're part and parcel of a bigger global disruption, then you will tweak and modify how you respond. So yes, I think we are, to be sure, at a difficult moment in the relationship. Something which we actually never expected.
But in your prescriptions, which you give us in your articles, you said not to get upset with what he says and not to react, not to be reactive to every statement, every press conference that he conducts, Donald Trump, right?
Well, one is a style issue and the other is a substance. You know the Prime Minister, I know him. He's not a person who tweets every day, not at least on foreign policy.
Yeah.
It's very measured, and that's the way it is. That's the way he is, and that's the way Donald Trump is. You can't change either of them.
So forget the Prime Minister. All we're getting from Indian side reaction is a Joint Secretary drafting a statement, very anodyne, and putting that out. So every time Trump says dead economy, all we get is one statement, which is like...
Yeah, I think, look, everyone here is still wanting to play this carefully because the stakes are so high in the India-US relationship. I think what you're seeing is a recognition of the fact that look, there is an asymmetry out here. You're dealing with a global power. You're not an equal, and you have to be realistic. Bravado and being rash and being kind of, thumping your chest or the table is not actually going to help. So that is why I think so far, and also I think it's all work in progress. I don't know where is the full stop in the Trumpian approach to India, let us say.
Keep squeezing?
Or he could relieve the pressure.
Okay.
So we can see both happening. Basically, he's testing. Again, if I look at what he's done with China or with Russia or with Europe, so you can see all speeds of the car working, the brake, the accelerator.
Entire gamut.
Everything. So I think it is now after 8 months or 7 months that he's turned his attention to us.
Yeah.
And we lived through a fairly nice honeymoon phase for the first few months. But now we're getting into his crosshairs.
May you live in interesting times. Curse.
Well, that's true. I mean, I think what we are dealing with is... so there's only one man in the world who knows what's going to happen next. And that is President Trump. Not even his cabinet officials.
Yeah.
They're also the last to know, as we are. And if we give him the benefit of doubt, he's got it figured in his mind, what he actually wants at a very broad macro level. He's looking at the world as a chessboard, as a deal-making platform. He's looking at each country, how it fits into his bigger design. And so it's quite amazing that the only person who knows the next step is him. And not even his, as I said, his officials.
Namaste, Jai Hind. You're watching ANI podcast with Smita Prakash.
अगर हम उसको मस्जिद कहेंगे तो फिर विवाद होगा.
The issue is टूटा है क्या भारत?
400 पार का मतलब ये है कि संविधान खतरे में है.
क्या हम लोग ये निर्देश देते हैं कि फला को गिरफ्तार करके जेल डाल दें?
वही तो कह रहे हैं सब.
ये बेबुनियाद निराधार आरोप.
सच्चा सुनना चाहो देखो स्मिता प्रकाश ANI. It does not lie.